In 1967, the first Super Bowl was played between the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Beatles released Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, one of rock's most acclaimed albums. The first Rolling Stone magazine was published. Tens of thousands of Vietnam War protesters marched on Washington, D.C. And Dave Lorenz started work for the South Suburban Parks and Recreation District.
I am Dave Lorenz, Executive Director, South Suburban Park and Recreation District. Well, my first day, I'll never forget it. Glenn Stinson was the Executive Director at the time, and there was Broadridge Shopping Center. There was a little bar there called Dutchess. He took me over to Dutchess, bought me a hamburger and a beer, and on a napkin wrote $5,800. That was my contract. And I went to work. The first project we had was in late October, and the district had an ice skating rink, Burns Ice Skating Rink on the old Arapahoe County Fairgrounds. And it was time to open that up. And so he took me down there, opened the door, rats, dust, filth, and said, get this ready for opening. And tonight we're going to start making ice. And a lot of the hockey parents would come down, and pizza and beer would flow. And we would stay there all night long with a garden hose, walking the ice, spraying the ice to get it formed until it was thick enough to put the Zamboni on. And that went on for 2 nights. And that was a yearly tradition, the 1st of November. When I first came, we actually didn't have any recreation centers. And we used all the elementary schools in the summer with what was called summer playground programs. And they were free. And we used the schools for activities, basketball leagues and that during the winter. We had the Burns Ice Skating Rink. Arapahoe High School had just opened, and they had a nice swimming pool up there. And the district, I programmed and managed the swimming pool evenings, weekends, and summers. And we had Harlow and Franklin swimming pools. That's all the recreation facilities we had. And at that time, we had very few employees in the district full-time, but we relied on school teachers. And almost every program was run by a school teacher from the district. And actually, Franklin and Harlow were built on school district property under long-term leases, so it's been a great relationship. When I came here, Gil Christie was a city manager, and he really was kind of a mentor of mine. But one time we were having some issue with the city, and I was complaining to our board about what the city was doing, and Gil called me the next day and said, you know, Dave, you really shouldn't badmouth your friends. And that was a lesson I took to heart. And so I try to use that as I go forward. We have a new city manager in Littleton. We have a new city manager in Centennial. City of Lone Tree has been created and a city manager. We have a new city manager in Sheridan. So I spend a lot of time working with those individuals to make sure we have a good understanding. And one of the things that drives us is the cities get the majority of the Arapahoe County open space money. And yet the cities don't have park and recreation departments. But whoever has the money controls the decision. So we spend a lot of time working with them on joint projects and setting priorities. Our first golf course was the South Suburban Golf Course. That opened in 1974. And the popularity of golf was growing, and we wanted to do another location. And I can't remember the developer down there off of Bowles, but we worked with him to build a golf course, and then he built all those condominiums around it. It was kind of a community. At the time, we didn't have money. We didn't have a bond issue to fund it, so we used what we call revenue bonds. And to make the revenue bond more successful, a golf course itself, as you know, doesn't get much play in the winter. So I had the idea to build an indoor tennis facility there to get a year-round revenue stream. So we built the original 9 holes and the tennis center with the bubble, and that was all done with a revenue bond, which means there's no tax dollars into it. That used to be the old racetrack part of it, and it was called Centennial Racetrack, so we named it Centennial Golf and Tennis Center. A few years later, the economy got really bad, and a lot of properties were put into OREO, and the banks were trying to get rid of the properties, and so one of the banks came to us and offered us a good price on what I call the back 9. And we were able to pick that up again using the financing from the revenue bonds. And it's a great little course right now. And then as time went on, you'll recall, City of Centennial was formed, and some of the people on Littleton Council didn't like having a Centennial Golf and Tennis Center in Littleton because it didn't relate. And so we went through a process renaming it Littleton Golf and Tennis Center. Devlin and King Hudson had formed a foundation, and when she passed away, she had several community leaders on the board. She was into beautification. And so they came up with the idea of building a botanical gardens that reflected Colorado plants and trees and things that could grow here native. They spent all of our foundation money with the idea, build it and they will come. And unfortunately, they didn't come. And so the foundation went bankrupt and actually had liens against it by the local banks. And we stepped in and paid off the liens for very little money. So we acquired the 30-acre Hudson Gardens. We wanted to keep the original foundation board active because they had a real belief in it and understood her dream. And we started the process then of making it an entertainment center with the summer concerts and all the rentals for the weddings and everything. Right now, I think it's a very successful and economic generator for the city of Littleton. Dick Castleberry was the executive director at the time, and we had a growing senior population. So Castleberry was a great delegator, and he called me in his office one day and said, "Lorenz, I want you to get a senior citizen center." No money, no ideas where. So I started the process working with different AARP groups and putting newspaper articles out there, and I'd get calls all the time from people saying, "Why don't you buy the Safeway store that just closed down here? Why don't you buy this store?" I said, "That'd be great, but we don't have any money." So I was sitting in the office one day and I got this call from this guy, and he said, "I got an idea for you where to build that community center. Why don't you buy the old Littleton Clinic on Littleton Boulevard that was for sale?" I said, "Gee, that's great, but again, we don't have money." He says, "Do you know who I am? My name's Doug Buck." I said, "No, I don't know." He said, "Well, son, you come down and talk to me. I'll tell you how we can do this." He was a land developer. He was very wealthy, and he said, "We're going to buy that Littleton Community Center. I'll put up the money, and you guys need to raise just a little bit, and I'll tell you how to buy it from the realty company." We listened to him. We bought it. Then we had to start renovating it. Well, we really had no money for renovation, but the city of Littleton helped us. We got a federal grant for renovation. The Littleton Community Center was only good for playing cards or talking, or we had a ping pong table and pool tables, but seniors wanted to be more active. We couldn't have activity in the community center because of its design and structure. And that's when we started talking, we need another recreation center. We had the Goodson Recreation Center at the time, but we wanted to build another recreation center in Littleton. So we started looking for a location. We looked at many sites. The city finally stepped up and bought the old Arapahoe County Jail that had been vacated. The city bought the site, tore it down, and leased it to us. So we started building the recreation center on the site. As we were going along there, we were a little short of money, and I don't remember if it was Mrs. Buck or one of the sons said, "Would like to get naming rights on that center. What can we do?" So we sat down and negotiated. They gave us $1 million, which allowed us to build the gym and the running track, and we named it the Douglas Buck Community Recreation Center. And I attribute all to the fact that I answered the phone in the office, and I listened to this guy, who I didn't know. South Platte Park was a vision, I think, of a lot of the Littleton leadership, and Vaughn Gardner, I think, was mayor at the time and on council, and Larry Burger was city manager, and I remember Larry Burger coming to our office on Littleton Boulevard there almost every day and talking to me and Ray Prince, talking about there's an opportunity down here to keep the core from channeling the river like people think of a channeled river in LA, and we have an opportunity to have a large floodplain park here, but it's going to take some work, and the city really was the driver on this, and they actually went back to Washington, D.C. and got permission from the Corps to change the money that would would have been used to channel the river to buy the property adjacent to it as a fun open space park. But it was a wonderful addition. It's over 800 acres. It's one of the largest open space parks in the country, and it gets tremendous use. Over time, we developed the Mary Carter Trail from Denver all the way down to C-470, and that's really opened up the park to traffic. And then we have the wildlife program down there, the Nature Center, the Carson Nature Center. Charlie Bloston from the city was instrumental in that Nature Center. It used to be up on Jackass Hill, and when the individuals there wanted to donate it, he figured out a way to put it on a truck and bring it down off of Jackass Hill to have it located at South Platte Park, and it's now known as the Carson Nature Center. I grew up on the recreation side, and when we first got the South Platte Park and got involved in a management agreement with the city, I would go down there and try to visualize, boy, we can put a lot of fields down here, soccer fields and golf courses, and make it a real recreation activity center. The people who were involved, the city and others, wanted to keep it as a natural area. And over time, I learned to really value that open space. I go down there frequently, and I run on the trail, I walk on the trail, and I love the fact that when you get down there, you're isolated from the rest of the community. You hardly hear the traffic on Santa Fe, and it's just a wonderful experience to get away. Open space, trails, and trail connectivity are the most popular things we have going. And the whole Arapahoe County Open Space Program passed with like 68% support because of the vision of open space. Over the next 13 years, they'll produce over $220 million that can be used for open space and trails and enhancements. And when they did the resolution, they increased the amount of money that could be used for maintenance. One of the issues we face, as well as the cities, you can buy it, but the long-term cost of maintaining it is really more than just buying it. So we need that source of revenue to buy the property. I think the South Platte River Corridor is the most unique and valuable natural resource we have, at least in western Arapahoe County. And it's been long and been neglected and not taken care of. We also had the Trust for Public Land involved with us, and we put together a package working with Arapahoe County Open Space, which had the funding source to make a lot of this happen. We applied for a Great Outdoors Colorado grant and got a $5.2 million legacy grant that could be matched with Arapahoe County Open Space money as well as money from all the cities. And we started a process of identifying properties. One of the key acquisitions was the Murray property, which is down there on Big Dry Creek. And it had all those old buses on it, green buses, and they were all taken off. The Oxbow property right off of Bellevue. The East Bellevue Trailhead was acquired. Lee Gulch Overlook was acquired. Some land adjacent to South Platte Park. So we have acquired all of those properties, and we're now in the process of having completed master plans, and we'll be developing those this year. The planning process, the community was strongly supportive of this back to nature concept. In the summers, I play softball, tennis, golf, and run. In the winter, I play handball. I go indoors, and I run, and I work out a little bit. I've started taking yoga classes the past couple years, and I love just walking and running on the trails. I probably do that 3 or 4 times a week. This is a job like anything else. We have budgets, we have politics, we have employees, so it's, some people say I have the best job in the world, and I have to agree, I have a great job, but I still work. My value is, when I get frustrated or when I get tired, is going out and seeing people use the parks, the trails, the recreation centers, the ice rinks. I love to see the activity. And we basically have healthy users. They come to us because they want to. The parks and the trails create an environment. The trees help clean the air. They provide a place for people to go, to get away. That's the backbone of this district. Well, I could probably talk about South Suburban all day long.